we have good ideas. Let me just. Okay, so we are there. We'll be starting in a short while. We already have people coming in. Just
Perfect. Good amount of people here.
yeah, the more will join in, but let me just start on view. I was just looking for the view. Okay, now here we are. So hello everyone. Assalamu alaikum. Thank you for joining us today. I'm Noman Ali, founder and CEO of Supply Chain Talks, and I'm thrilled to host this important discussion on sustainable procurement, driving ESG goals through ethical sourcing and supplier collaboration. As the push for sustainability and accountability grows, procurement teams are in a unique position to lead their organizations towards achieving environmental, social, and governance, commonly known as ESG goals. Today, we will explore how ethical sourcing and supply collaboration can drive these efforts forward, balancing sustainability with practical business needs. We are fortunate to have with us two esteemed panelists who bring extensive expertise and insights into the topic. Joining us is Mr. Fahad Bhatti, Chief Procurement Officer at Textile Limited, who has been a leader in transforming procurement to prioritize sustainable practices within global supply chain. And Nille Gosavi, Logistics Procurement Head at Phoenix Contact Middle East, who has vast experience in ethical sources and innovative supplier partnerships. Together, we will dive into strategies, challenges, and solutions in sustainable procurement, looking at how technology, metrics, and real world examples can guide us towards a responsible and impactful decisions. Thank you again for joining, and I encourage all of you to participate actively by asking questions and sharing your thoughts in the chat box or in the Q&A panel. So let us get started. So I will put my first question to Fahad. So Fahad, my first question for you is, what role does procurement plays in driving a company's sustainability goals, and how can procurement teams align their strategy with broader ESG initiatives?
Well, it's actually funny because I think procurement is at the helm of driving sustainability goals across an organization. The reason why I say that is because we're uniquely positioned to drive the internal change and the external change. You see, we're one of the few in teams which can network externally. Okay? The other one being government and regulatory affairs or commercial usually. So I think we can drive sustainability goals. Procurement should be at the forefront of driving sustainability goals because we are the ones who enlist suppliers. We are the ones who sort of have internal teams generate criteria for how they select suppliers. We are the ones who can drive this change. So I think procurement, any change regarding suppliers, regarding anything which is external, should be led by procurement. And I've seen majority of these changes. They happen uh, successfully when procurement drives them. Okay, so usually procurement. I've seen both good examples and bad examples of change management. One of the better examples of change management that I've seen is where the product manager is the project manager. Okay, so anyone who is driving the change is the owner of the change. Okay, so procurement being the owner of the change is absolutely important. So let me give you an example. Okay, so I've had the opportunity of working in three very distinct industries. The first one, I started off my career with upstream oil and gas, then downstream oil and gas, then manufacturing, and now in textiles. You see, the customers are changing, the end users everywhere are changing, and their demands are changing. So accordingly, brands are changing, and accordingly, us as their suppliers will need to change. and we will have to then in turn change our suppliers. So it is actually the entire supply chain has to move towards the ESG goal. I hope I've answered that.
Amazing. And I go with your concept of the ownership that without ownership, nothing can go forward. Nile, if you would like to share your thoughts on the same.
Yes, thank you, Norman, and good afternoon, good evening to all of us who are here right now. You able to hear well, Norman?
Yeah, definitely.
Perfect. Excellent. Uh, so I think this is a very, very relevant topic right now. And why so right now is we are actually at COP29, which is happening right now in Baku. Now, as we talk about sustainability, it goes hand in hand when we talk about procurement and when we talk about supply chain. Uh, my thoughts on this are we start looking at the vision and mission of the organization. That's where we start defining as an organization what our procurement and what our sustainable goals will be. Now, once we have the vision and mission, now we start as a procurement team, we start drawing from these vision and mission of the organization, and procurement vision and mission needs to be aligned to the top management vision and mission. It's always a top down approach. It cannot be a bottoms up approach. It will not work. Now, as we look at the company strategy, then we start drawing our procurement strategy from it. And once we start drawing this, then we say, what is it that drives the company vision and mission? Are we looking at SDG goals as an organization? Are we looking at the UN Compact? What are those goals that the organization tries to take it forward to be sustainability? And when we talk about sustainable here, we're not just talking about ESG, which is a very big part of it, but also how do I remain relevant for the next 100 years? So as sustainability, we also talk about I was as a company being here for last 100 years now. How can I be relevant and how my products and my services could be relevant for the market in the next 100 years? So, it becomes a whole journey rather than just a goal and an objective that we need to achieve. Numan.
So true. And, I built on the same statement that you did, that the mission and vision of the organization, and how can procurement embrace this and move forward. So my next question, it will be linked to that how basically can organizations effectively integrate ethical sourcing practices into their supply chains, and what challenges commonly do they face in this process? So Nile, I would like you to continue on this, please.
Excellent. So as we talk about this journey, and as we know within supply chains, there are going to be several tiers or tiers, as some may call it. So you have a tier one, a tier two, a tier three within your organization, within your procurement. Now you start looking at your tier one, and then you start drawing on integrating your sourcing practices. Now, sourcing practices do not come out of the air, as we say. They are again embodied in your organization's ideology, in your organization's vision and mission. So these are written down, and as these get written down, then people get clarity within the procurement organization, and then work very closely with their tier one first as their immediate suppliers, and start looking at how do I then translate my vision and mission and my procurement strategy to my tier one. Now, is that enough? No. We need to go down to tier two, and then we need to go down to tier three. And how far could we go? It again depends on individual organization scope, individual organization's breadth, how many people we have, what type of visibility we want. And then visibility becomes a very important topic, is how do I strive to get visibility across all tiers of my organization so that everybody embodies the same ethical spirit that I wish to percolate through my objectives. Now, it could be training, possibly. It could be getting the whole procurement team trained with some standardized courses which are there out in the market. It could be looking at specific trainings, like you could have the US FCPA Act you could do, or you could do the UK Bribery Act. So you get your teams trained into those, and then say, okay, now Fahad mentioned about saying that he was in oil and gas. So now oil and gas, we talk a lot about conflict minerals. And and in any other industry, you talk about blood diamonds. So now you then start looking at how can I ensure that the tin and tungsten and titanium and God knows what all minerals are there, are not from the conflict region? Do I have that type of visibility? Do I have the tools now to measure them? Yeah.
Yes. No, so true. And you're so right that the conflict zones are very important to understand. And people do not realize that it is not just the, as you mentioned, the first and the second and third tier. People, most of the organization are so focused on only on the first tier that they forget where the second tier and everything is there. So that visibility across supply chain is important to establish a strong ESG, a culture across board. And what you preach, the second tier will learn from you, and that it basically goes on and on. Fahad, if you would like to add on to this, or we move to the next question for you.
I think Nilay really delved into it from an organizational perspective. So he's covered it so well longitudinally that let me cover it latitudinally.
Sure.
So if you move from, let's just talk about the entire P2P process, right? So I think it is important that whatever ESG vision that Nilay talked about, that we are trying to drive, it is present across the P2P process. Okay, so it starts from supplier onboarding. What kind of suppliers do you want to work with? It should be a part of your pre-qualification process. It should be like, for example, you remember a time when people used to talk about HSC exactly the way that we're talking about ESG right now.
Correct.
So it was at the start of our careers, probably, Noman, when people used to talk about HSC this way, and they were trying to teach people why HSC is good business. Okay, and now we're exactly at the other end of the spectrum, where HSC is a way of life. It is a hygiene factor. You cannot imagine working without HSC. And now we're talking about ESG now. So it's exactly like that. So I draw a parallel there. So now HSC is also embedded all across your P2P process. So in your supplier onboarding, when you are bidding, it's part of your RFQ document. When you get your proposals, it's a part of their undertaking that this is that what they're going to do. It's a part of your selection criteria. It's a part of your contract. It's a part of your supplier management. And then again, the cycle continues. So I think between both, it's important to cover it within your organization, and it is important to cover it across your supply chain, like you said.
Perfect.
Yes,
So,
and a key point there also, sorry, but the key point
yeah,
also,
please.
Fahad and Noman, again, is we talked about rightly about the procurement and the supply chain organization, but then also we start looking at a CFT, the cross-functional organization. Even before we go on to the external stakeholders within the organization, the internal stakeholders needs to be on board when we talk about ethical sourcing. Now, whether it's finance, which comes right off our minds, that finance is the department, but not just finance. I mean, product marketing, product development, sales, marketing, product life cycle management, all of these departments, if they come together, I think we will have a robust ethical sourcing strategy that can be then, distributed across our tiers, possibly.
Okay. So, Nile and Fahad, I agree with you. And when you talk about the cross-functional alignment of the internal stakeholder, and this basically then derive again from the mission and the vision of the organization, that if the mission and the vision of the organization is that they are ethical, they are, a do-right company, then they are willing to pay that extra dollar for doing the right thing as well. And now the consumer are so well equipped, knowledgeable, that they know what to buy, and they don't go for the cheap option, they go for the right option. And this is how the ASG needs to be positioned as well, that this is the right option, the right thing to do within the organization, outside the organization, within your own personal life as well. And Fahad, as you were talking about the pre-qualification and the supplier onboarding, and this is where my next question come in, which is linked to the collaboration with supplier, the supplier collaboration. That from your perspective, what are the key strategies for building long-term sustainable partnerships with suppliers?
I think, well, number one, I think your question has the answer in it. Partnership. Okay, we need to, and this is this is the broad brush theme of procurement that we're in right now, that we need to develop partnerships. Okay, and it's fairly simple. How do you develop partnerships? And sustainable partnerships, right? So ethical sourcing. We're talking about ethical sourcing. The first thing that comes to mind is visibility. Okay, we need to work on long-term visibility with our suppliers. If they have visibility of the journey that we are on, they will do wonders with how they will collaborate with us. The second part is that we need to work with them. Okay, there has to be a portion of hand-holding, and you see, when you look across your supplier base, there will be early adopters, like any organization. Like internal organizations, there'll be early adopters. There will be suppliers who will need hand holding, and there will be laggers who will be either tagging along just because that is a way of life now, or they will then cease to be a part of your system. And those are some tough calls that you will need to take. Those are some tough calls that we will need to take as procurement people, as supply chain managers, and as leaders, that the future of our supplier base is not it may not be what it currently is. Okay, so I think two things, transparency and visibility, come first. Then I think it is more so of change management, how you take them along on your change, how you provide them visibility, because you understand, this is something that, so it moves across scopes, right? So when we talk about ESG language, so about 5-7 years ago, we were talking about scope 1. Now we're talking about scope 2, scope 3 very quickly, and maybe it goes beyond that as well. You see, so as the scopes continue on increasing, there's more and more anxiety on the further end. You see, scope 1 will be easy to adopt because they're much more ahead of the curve. Scope 2 will likely have more challenges. Scope 3 might have more challenges purely because of the kind of suppliers they are. And then further on, their subcontractors as well. So that is I think those are key elements which we need to consider.
Yes. Nile, if you would like to add.
Absolutely. I mean, and there we're talking about long term. And when we talk about long term, then the word that comes to my mind is collaboration. Now, as we start talking about collaboration, now as we go into procurement and we go into procurement strategies, that's a very good model out there, which we know there is the Kraljick's matrix. If you start looking at the Kraljick's matrix, it will then start identifying at which quadrant some of your suppliers lie. Are they the strategic ones? Are they the bottleneck ones? Are they the ones that you need to leverage on? And then depending upon where these suppliers lie in which bucket, depending on the Kraljick's matrix for your organization, because each organization will have a very different bucket for themselves. So the quadrants will change based on an organization to organization. And then we start looking at what are those ones which are strategic. Because again, as procurement, some of us might be coming from industries and from functions and from companies where there'll be thousands of suppliers. Now you cannot collaborate with thousands of suppliers, and there is no need to collaborate with thousands of suppliers. So you start looking at your strategic ones. You start then saying that, okay, these are my strategic ones. I start collaborating with them. And then I say, okay, when do I start involving these suppliers? I would say I'm of the opinion or of the thought that you start involving suppliers as early as possible. Maybe at the conceptualization stage, not even at the design stage, even at the conceptualization stage, where you then start working with these suppliers, and there has to be trust. So collaboration and long term cannot be without trust. We know that within the Japanese automobile industry, the same suppliers work with Toyota and Nissan and with somebody else, but all of them work to entire industry, and we've seen the benefits that the entire industry has given out quality cars. So there's a trust that needs to be developed when we talk about long-term sustainable suppliers there.
Correct. Thanks. And again, you talked about, and even Fahad talked about the long-term sustainability, long-term visibility and transparency. And my opinion on this is strong that obviously to ensure that there is a a long-term visibility across the supply chain, across the multi-tier. You need technology to support you, and without technology, that cannot happen. So, Nile, I would like you to take this question next one. That what role does technology and for me, one of the best technologies which I believe can really play a big part on the ESG is the blockchain, which basically helps you identify how a certain item has moved across multiple supply chains. And you can add on to that how it is, what role it is playing to increase the transparency and accountability in
So
sustainable
I think we all
procurement.
in the room are related. Yeah, I think we all in the room are procurement or supply chain professionals, and we realize this very quickly that the industry for supply chain professionals has moved beyond the tactical and getting into the strategic roles where procurement, logistics, warehouse management, and demand planning and whatnot you call within the supply chain umbrella now is more strategic. And now when we start talking about procurement as a strategic tool, it reminds me, of a video that I used to share long back where there's a cartoonish character and she tells everybody, I want to be in procurement, and they just stare at her. Procurement? What do they even do? And then she explains, oh, it's a lot of companies. So, so now we have gone from just the spend part of it to actually seeing where the benefit lies. And we all know that, procurement is a direct benefit to the bottom line. A penny saved is a direct benefit to the bottom line. And now there are a plethora of tools which are available. And blockchain, as Noman you rightly said, increases the visibility. And Noman, Fahad touched upon this earlier, saying visibility across. Now, whether that visibility comes through tech, and of course it does come through tech, but it's also something that different I would talk about is also the culture of the organization. So technology, to implement the technology and the tools that are available in the market today, then to take those tools, whether it is source to pay, whether it's procure to pay, or whether it is any of the online tools that are available to dissect your data, give you a spend analysis, is good. But procurement professionals are now trained or are getting trained not just within procurement, also within the finance area, to understand how can I then start implementing. How do I first understand that data, and then how do I implement it for the business? So as we know that it is not only about the lowest cost, but we often talk about the total acquisition cost and the life cycle cost. So procurement
Mm.
professionals have started understanding this, that it's not that I need to go to the lowest cost supplier, because in the long run it may not prove to be the one that is the best for my business.
Awesome. Fahad?
So yeah, I think absolutely essential technology. We've come. I think we're in a time where technology is so relevant. Uh, I would say in the past 1 year, we've grown by leaps and bounds, especially with AI coming in. Now I'm a big proponent of AI and also an opponent of it, where people. So I'm an opponent of it, where people just try to put an AI chatbot everywhere. कि यार ये लगा दो ठीक है. So yeah, so it's just a chip on their shoulder that my this tool has an AI chatbot, but I'm a big proponent of it. And so you touched upon blockchain, and I think blockchain is absolutely essential in anything that is traceability related. Okay, because it essentially it is self-governing, and it ensures compliance throughout, and it ensures that it's kosher. The entire chain is kosher. So the chain of custody, wherever you want chain of custody to be monitored, I think that is absolutely essential, and that it's very pertinent for modern day textiles. Okay, so let me give you an example out of where out of the industry where I'm currently working, because the consumers now, the end consumers are now very they're growing. um, they are much more knowledgeable in terms of how things are sourced. So we see circulars playing a big role. Circular economies and circular supply chains playing a big role. And Noman, I see you smiling there, because this is one of the key things that you are discussing these days. Okay, so
Yeah.
circular economies and circular supply chains playing a big role because people want to see that. They want to see it, and they will only go and buy such kind of thing. So I think number one, transparency. Number two, I think procurement is in a unique place because once you worked in procurement, you are able to influence both. I think inside and outside the organization. So you're even so Nilay touched on this, like you can think finance wise, but I would go ahead and say you can even think engineering wise. So IoT, for example, is playing a big role now.
Yeah.
You have on the spot analysis. The analysis is, you don't need a separate tool to do your data analytics because that is generated in the machine itself. Your refrigerator can take out your entire grocery list right
Yeah.
now. That is where the world is headed, and that is smart.
Yes.
Why spend your brain? You can spend your brain strategizing. Why do you want to spend it making lists? And that is where technology steps in. Water is a scarce resource, and it just so happens that all the industries I've been in have been very water conscious. Oil and gas, um, uh, fertilizer and chemicals, and now textile. All three industries are very cognizant of the amount of water that they use, and so are the consumers. So maybe we in the future we have IoT devices that can monitor real time the kind of water they're using and recycle the water on the go. So I'm just thinking out loud here.
Yeah. No, agree with you. And the reason I was smiling that I enjoy when someone steps onto the area of the circularity in supply chain because people do not. And over the last 2 years, the journey that I've taken in circularity, I found out that people don't know what it is, and people do not understand that how simple the concept is and how it is, and. Uh, the technology part, and then my next question, which would be around the cost consideration, and I'll come to Nilay as well. I just want to share something that the project that I'm working on, the Invex, the platform. Again, sustainability should not be a cost burden on organizations. And as you said on the transparency part, Fahad, you would be surprised and amazed. When we started doing our research, we found out that approximately, every year, $2 trillion worth of inventory goes to waste. Just imagine 2 trillion can pay off
Not
debt potentially for
not
most of the
surprising,
world.
not surprising, Noman.
Yeah.
Not surprising.
And the reason is that there is zero transparency and visibility across multiple supply chains. Nobody
Yeah,
knows what is happening next door. The kind
yeah,
of inventories that they are. And with Invex, what we are trying to build, and apologies, I do not talk about my projects in these webinars, but since we are talking about sustainability and procurement is responsible for the inventories one way or the other. So the two entities sitting next to each other on the same road and everything sharing a simple wall don't know what kind of collaboration that they can do. And this is what we are trying to do with technology by creating a marketplace to create visibility across multiple supply chains, to create to let people know who is carrying what kind of excess inventory so that they can share, they can barter and everything. So I would quite down. Move to my next to Nile, and he has have his hand raised as well. But he can after I ask my question, he can continue with his comment and answer the question as well. And my question is again around the cost considerations that from your perspective, and this would be for both of you, that how companies have successfully balanced the cost consideration. Nile, you mentioned finance, that the first thing that comes to mind is always the finance internal stakeholders as well. So the cost consideration with sustainability and ESG for organization, how procurement plays its role in this. So over to you, Nile.
Sure. Sure. The reason I had raised my hand actually was all three of us are here, and you both of you have a little bit of a gray hair. I'm no different. I also, if I have a beard, if I start growing, it's a gray beard. But we come from an era, and we're talking about digital platforms. We come a long way, and some of my friends are also here on this webinar, Noman. But we come from that era where we actually had to sit with a pen and a paper and then write inventory coming in and the
Exactly.
production plan and then going out, if you remember. And we used to be only happy if somebody could automate that for us and then give us a magic number which we should, stock, rather than doing all these pluses and minuses and how much is the production schedule and all of those things. And now we are talking about so much of digitalization where any corner of the world we can sit and actually complete our procurement activities. So that's amazing for all of us. But also, as we talk about the topic that Noman has for us, is balancing the cost considerations. Then, as procurement, and we have seen a lot of people within procurement becoming professionals, uh, we know and we start knowing what materials are being used. It's not those long time gone era where people used to just buy. And I come from an automotive background. When I started, is people who were on the shop floor then came into procurement. So they were not going anywhere from the shop floor, and they then were brought as procurement officers in the organization, and they started doing procurement. And then you had the fresh batch of engineers coming in who also joined in procurement. Now, when that started happening, and when people from all spheres started getting into procurement from all backgrounds, people started understanding what different materials are being used, what are the different products that can be used, what is engineered materials. And as you start getting into the details of your products, so if you're an automotive or if you're from the furniture industry and if you start looking at engineered products, now you start cutting down cost at the same time increasing the sustainability of the product. So people started understanding within procurement what is the product life cycle. And within the product life cycle, people started then understanding where does my product lie. And we know so many products that are always or near always at the maturity stage. They are never going to decline in the foreseeable future. And there are certain products that obviously within a year or two go from the PLC and get into the mature and then into the decline stage. So if we know these things, and then we say, where does my product lie? And if my product lies at a declining stage, how do I use that? And you touched base upon Noman on circularity. How can I then start using those materials and start putting them back into my ecosystem, if I may call so? And how can I then get my suppliers on board also? Because the suppliers would be critical to ensuring that strategy and vision is again getting into your new product. And new products need not be completely new products. New products are recycled, upscaled products, and this is what the consumer wants. I mean, all have children who are at that age, who are teenagers. Some of them might be younger, or some of them, but they do make these conscious decisions based on how they perceive the brand, how they perceive the company, and they decide and they stick to it, saying that I or we will not use, or we will use these products because they are perceived as more sustainable. So it's a complete change from where we were earlier. Now, with the proliferation of online tools, the next generation is much more vigilant about these things. And organizations who are disruptors have now, and who are early movers, have started gaining advantage of this policy.
Awesome. Fahad, your 2 cents.
So, yeah, I remember. So I'm going to go back to my MBA class, IBA Bali. So I remember this marketing professor teaching us about hygiene factors. And the first, he gave an example, and he was like, "You remember the first time you went to a gas station and a person came to your car and wiped your car's windshield?" They remember, all of us remember, because we were from a part of that generation. We're a part of that generation which saw it happen for the first time.
Yeah.
So at that point in time, it felt great, right? It was an addition. But now, if somebody doesn't come and do that, you get ticked off. And that is the same thing about ESG. I think in the future, that is the same thing that will happen to ESG. It will become a way of life. You see, we will not be able to imagine life without ESG goals and stuff like that. So I was recently at EDIPEC, and you'd be amazed at how much. So an oil and gas summit, an oil and gas supplier summit of the world, was more about non-oil and gas.
Hmm.
So just last week, They were talking about carbon capture. They were talking about how to make oil and gas sustainable, how to reach sustainability targets. There were companies which were manufacturing electrolyzers, stuff like that. It's heartening to see that, and that shows you real change. Because if people are spending money putting up a stall at Edipec, traveling all the way there from all across the world and showcasing this, that means that change is already there. Because there's a demand for that sort of supply.
Yes.
And this is a hardcore oil and gas summit. Okay. So like 5-10 years ago, the only thing you would have found there was drilling and reciprocating pumps and all of that. So I think that. And secondly, it is important to realize that organizations who want to have a future in a long-term future, okay, who are thinking 25 years ahead, will have to adopt this and organize this is a part of organizational DNA. Okay, there are organizations who do not think 25 years ahead, and there are organizations who think 25 years ahead. You can't change this. Okay, so organizations which are geared to thinking 10, 15, 25 years ahead will have no problem spending on ESG, because 15 years ago they were thinking about today, and they implemented something 15 years ago that is a reality today. HSC, we talked about this a little while ago, but I remember when I was working for oil and gas, they had this one quote which was, HSC is good business. Okay, and they weren't talking about the short run, they were talking about the long run. The kind of costs that we saved just because we employed good HSE practices meant we were way ahead of the curve. And organizations who want to be way ahead of the curve, they will have to think about this in totality. They will have to think about future costs, and they will have to think about future supplies, future buyers, future consumers. Because now is the time to act. If we don't do it now, tomorrow will be too late.
So true. So I'll pick up on what you talked about, Fahad, about thinking ahead and how important is it. So from your perspective, that how can procurement teams effectively assess and mitigate risk related to social and environmental compliance within their supply chains?
Oh, absolutely essential. So I'll tell you how. And we touched upon this a little while earlier, because we have to then look at the entire P2P process. Okay, so this is highly, now we're getting into for the past questions we were talking strategic. This is highly operational stuff. This is stuff that you have to mandate. So this is stuff where you talk about, how am I going to evaluate my suppliers? Which supplier can work with us? Is it a supplier which is, let's just suppose, who has a bank account and has a profile, they can come work with us, or who has a sustainability strategy, who has a sustainability policy? They can show that, they can show it in practice, they can give us examples, and let's just suppose they've been verified by someone. Okay, there are third parties who verify your sustainability practices. ISO does it, so do a lot more organizations. And so that is what we need to work on. So this is the operational bit of it, and then move on to how you are doing your RFPs, how you are doing your supplier evaluations, how you are giving them how you are giving them funds. Okay, are you and this has to be done throughout that chain. So for example, if I'm talking about ESG, but I still have a bid box somewhere where people are coming and dropping paper bids, that doesn't work. See, and if I'm talking about ESG, and I let's just suppose my office is running on a generator, that doesn't work. You have to so it's more action based rather than theory based. You can mandate them, of course they'll do it, but they won't believe in it. So you have to first believe in it yourself, and then you can make anyone else believe in it, right? So it's that kind of a thing, and you have to do it across the. I wouldn't even say supply chain now. I would talk in the greater context about value chain. Okay, and doing it before it is done. Okay, before it is mandated on you. Look, wherever we are, unless we are the end consumer, even if we are the end consumers, we're a supplier to someone. We're part of that value chain.
Yeah.
So your customer will eventually mandate it on you. Like you will mandate on laggers, there'll come a time when you will mandate it and say that, hey guys, let's just talk about e-sourcing, right? So now I think 95% of good procurement leading organizations are on some sort of e-sourcing platform, be it Ariba, be it Coupa, be it whatever. So let's stay agnostic and say they're on some sort of platform. And they've made a conscious decision. They've said that we will not work with anyone who does not want to work on this platform. And that is how ESG will be. I think very, very soon, that is how ESG will be.
No, so true. Nilay, if you would like to, because I would then touch a little bit on the generative part comment of Fahad. So Nilay, if you would like to add on to it, please.
Sure. So a different take, and to add to what Fahad has been saying, but a little different take is when we talk about risk, then we start talking about resilience. And as we know, your supply chain is as strong as the weakest link. And as we say, resilience is something like, you pull a rubber band and you leave it, it comes back to its original form. So how quickly can organize, there will be disruptions, we know this, and we've seen this time and again. So it's not a question of what to do when there is a disruption, but how quickly can you come back to your natural form is how it's going to differentiate between the early users and the laggards. Now, which is your weakest link then? If it is the risk, which is your weakest link? It could be your single source supplier, but not necessary. It could be somewhere else in your tier 2, tier 3. It could be your internal stakeholders or your internal processes itself, which could be the weakest link. Need not be an external factor or an external big calamity that can become your biggest, weakest link. So we've seen all of this. We have seen that when we start talking, we looked at the the Rana Plaza disaster, which happened in Bangladesh. It was some brands which were selling in the West, making clothes in Bangladesh, and because of the conditions that it happened. So which is your weakest link? It needs a very, very detailed study from procurement to identify which could be my weakest link. And there are several software heat maps, maturity models which are out there. Then to say that, okay, which are my 1, 2, and 3 weakest link, and then I identify those, and then I put practices in place to mitigate those risks. And then when the one gets mitigated, then you go down to 2, because then that becomes number 1, and start putting in strategies in place. So it's a continuous process, risk mitigation and analysis in that case then.
No, so true. So I'll make now I have two comments. And my first comment is regarding the generative part. In most of the discussions that I sit and someone talks about sustainability and then they bring in the topic of electric vehicles and all these things. I have an issue. I am pro and I have a little bit of issue as well, because as soon as
I know where you're
Fahad
going with this.
as soon as Fahad said generator, because this is what I say. Yes, I agree. If you look at an electric vehicle, as of just the electric vehicle, yes, very sustainable and everything. But the charging port from where it's getting the electricity, it is still being provided electricity from those oil-based power generation plants. So
Don't even get me started on the plastics.
I'm coming to that. So, Fahad, I'm coming to it. The plastics, the batteries, the lithium, the disposable, how long-term disposability, the mining standards, there are so many things on it that if you want to talk, if you want to say something is sustainable, you have to look at it from a totality perspective. And if the totality is not sustainable, then, it has to be And this is why the concept of net zero and the carbon points and these things that you cannot reduce it, but let's keep it net zero. You are creating, but not create too much kind of a thing. So I'll stop over here. But my next question is something that in a recent session, a panel session, I was sitting with Shailen, right? He was sitting, Nile knows Shailen, he's a common friend, one of the best people that I've come across. And the topic was around e-commerce and sustainability. Fine. And the discussion started, and Shailen came in with such a strong opinion. He said, e-commerce is not sustainable. So do not bring the two words in a same sentence because it doesn't make sense. And when he started talking about it, and I started thinking about it, yes, so right. And then the next question which came to me on on the e-commerce part and this thing in the session was around the KPIs and the metrics. And then I agreed with Shailen that e-commerce is all about quick, fast, and everything. And when you are trying to be fast, quick, you cannot be sustainable in that. Fine. So I'm now coming to my next question, and I'll link it over there. That from an organization perspective, what KPIs and metrics, and this is for you, Nilin, and I'm giving it to you because Shailen is, he's not very pro e-commerce, so and he's our friend. So this question is for you. That what KPIs or metrics should organization track to measure the success of the sustainable procurement efforts? What are the right true metrics? We can come up with any metrics we want to, but what is your take on this, please?
Absolutely. So I think we are still in that, in the mindset that when we talk about procurement KPIs, CQD, I mean, you put it as CQD, QCD, whatever you want to put it, cost, quality, delivery, comes in the same breath for all of us, which is procurement guys. I mean, all procurement related KPIs come down to cost, a quality, and a delivery. So if you talk about QCD, but now we start going beyond these, and then we start looking at what are these different KPIs that would be possibly very core to a procurement. These are changing roles within procurement as I see it. It's not about cost, quality, delivery. Now you're starting talking about going deeper into it. Now, as we said, the procurement team itself, the procurement leader itself has started getting more technical related skills. So that has started evolving. Procurement skills were always there, but these procurement skills are now started getting more into the tech side of things. And people have started, even the procurement teams have started getting more tech savvy. Now there are the softer skills which we cannot ignore as procurement then overarches into your internal and your external stakeholders. So now you start talking about interpersonal skills, those soft skills, which are also very vital, though they may not be coming on to the top of your KPI listing or your dashboard. Now, these interpersonal skills have started becoming more and more relevant. Then you have the strategic business skills also, how to translate your savings into something that the C-suite can understand. How do you bring it onto the dashboard? How do you make meaning out of this so-called savings, if we say that we do? So these have all started becoming more and more relevant. Now we start talking about what would be the sustainable ones that come on a procurement list after the cost, quality, delivery. Then there is a plethora of them again. Huge number of them that we can look at, whether it's emissions, whether it is energy savings, whether it is waste reduction, carbon dioxide emissions, plastic reductions. Again, will very much depend on the industry that you come from. So it's very specific to the industries that some of these KPIs would have much more weightage, and some of these again would have less weightage. It could be noise pollution for an industry that creates a lot of noise when they actually manufacture. It could be compliance if you are into a chemical manufacturer. But having said that, we keep that simple, having 3 or 4 KPIs. Become, if you do it more, then you look at the smart KPIs. So my suggestion to organizations who are here and to people who are here is to look at the ones which are relevant to them. Uh, we cannot go away with cost, quality, delivery, but try to weave in some of these important ones depending on the industry and depending on the function or the role of your industry.
So true. Agree with you. And the balance has to be there. That when you're looking at this the QCD perspective, that which is the right how weightage. Is it cost? Is it quality? Is it delivery? So that the balance should be maintained in that. Fahad, if you would like to add on, because after this is our last question from my side.
Yeah. So I think uh, CQD is here to stay. Okay, let me just say that first. because I feel it'll be a long time before we can move away from it. Somehow we have to fit ESG in this entire formula. Maybe it's a part of quality, maybe it's a part of cost, and maybe it's separate to it. But I think that will come. But I think in developing KPIs, it's very industry specific. Okay, so we touched about water usage previously. Scarce resource, clean water. Half of the world does not even have access to clean water. So maybe the idea is to work with suppliers whose water usage is less. Okay, so if you cannot eliminate it from your supply, your internal processes, maybe the idea is to work with suppliers who then use lesser water. Okay, let's just suppose in a textile world, dyes are a big consumption consumable. Okay, so maybe work with dye manufacturers whose water usage is less.
Hmm.
Okay, and then we talk about and this is and now I think this is fairly standardized and it's fairly out there because this is exactly scope 2. Okay, so this is what we talk about. How much of your suppliers are using renewable energy? How much of their energy is renewable? That's a part of it. Okay, that should be standardized everywhere, I think. But you cannot standardize it. You cannot mandate them till you don't mandate it on yourself. So I
Correct.
think that is the baseline for it, that you first do it yourself, and then to a certain degree do it yourself, and then go tell your supplier that, hey guys, this is what I want. So that is why scope 2 comes after scope 1. First you have to do the scope
Yeah.
1. Okay, so I cannot be doing something in my house and then go to the neighbor and say, hey man, you know, you do
So
this. So I think every procurement, it so if you're on the ESG path and if you're really serious about the ESG part, so first, uh, like Nile said, you drive from the ESG vision that you've developed. Okay, so the first thing being cognizant of what your ESG, or let's just say, I'm not saying carbon footprint, but or for a wider term, what your footprint is. Okay, and where is it that you create the largest footprint? Whether it is water, whether it is carbon emissions, land, uh, whatever it is, and then you develop your KPI along with it, that how are you going to tackle it. And procurement being at the center, I think we can influence a lot of decisions. It is just about how we present that data.
So I agree with you, and you said an interesting statement over here that you not just focus on the carbon footprint, but the footprint. And one important thing when we talk about ESG that people somehow kind of ignore, they focus on the E part and the G part, but they kind of skip the S part, the social element of it. And again, from a procurement perspective, and I think Nile touched on it, the conflict zones, uh, and unfortunately, when we talk about the subcontinent in the textile sector, even one of the most social thing is the the underage employees that organizations have, and this has been a very big issue for global companies when they are working in the cheap labor countries, Bangladesh, Pakistan, India, China, Taiwan, and these countries. These are an issue. So the social element has to be understood as well. How much is your gendered, the male and female proportion? Are you equal, opportunity
Are you
provider
an opportunity employer?
for the masses? Everything. So that has to be there. So agree with you, both of you. Great points. So now coming on the last question, and Fahad, for you, you were recently at Edipec, and
Yeah.
you mentioned that you saw a lot of things, future relevant things, what the technology and everything. So my next question for is, and the last question for you to take first, and then Nili to add on that. How do you foresee the future of sustainable procurement evolving, and what emerging trends should procurement leaders be aware of?
I think let me just reverse from the question a little bit and maybe look at it from a wider lens. Uh, so what is the future of sustainable business? Okay, because procurement is there to support the business, whatever the business is. As in, you tell me to buy an aircraft, I'll get you an aircraft. You tell me to buy a boat, I'll get you a boat. You tell me to buy a needle, I'll get you a needle. That's what a procurement guy is supposed to do, right? That's what a buyer is supposed to do in delivering the three things CQD. Okay, so I think it is more about where the world is headed. So I think everyone now, and because we have people from various parts of the world here on this call, the and a lot of them coming from the developing part of the world, okay, who will be taking notes on what the world is doing. So I think the first thing is to be cognizant of what your footprint is. I think that is the best. That's the first thing that you do. Okay, the baselining, like we say in everything, that is data. Collect the data, see what your baseline is, where you are sitting right now, and it's very simple, Noman. What I saw this year around at Edipec, I went a couple of years back as well. It was very different. Everyone was talking about how they are approaching sustainability. Whether it was technology companies, whether it was hardcore oil and gas suppliers, or whether it was uh, oil marketing companies, they've even gotten out of the mindset that they are oil marketing companies. They call themselves energy companies now. Okay, you're in the hub of it, you're in Saudi. So
Yeah,
they call themselves
so true.
energy companies now because they are looking at the entire definition, and they will provide you energy, and they are moving. So I do believe oil and gas will have a huge part to play for, let's just say, the next 30, 40, 50 years. Okay, oil and gas isn't going anywhere, but it will metamorph. It
Mm.
will metamorph into a place where most of the energy is coming from cleaner sources. Now, the the the, the thing is that the demand for this already exists. Okay, there is a captive demand for all of this. The thing is that the supply has to catch up. That is what I saw over there, that the supply has to catch up. Um, and now we're at that cusp where the investor has to take that decision, and they just need, I think they just need confidence that the demand exists. It's up there in the air. You can get that feeling about it, like the chill in the air that you get when
Mm.
winter's coming. It's there,
Mm.
but it's not here yet. You can feel that it is there, but it's not
But
arrived.
not here.
It's not yet here. So I think that is what will give the investors the confidence that this is where they want to invest in. That's a lot of hard-earned money, right? That's billions of dollars that we're talking about. And there are government-funded projects, large government-funded projects, which are already on the move, and you can see that across the globe.
Yeah.
Okay, sustainable fuels is one of them. Electrification is another one of them. Renewable energies are another. So you see all of that, and so a lot of this is, you look at maritime and logistics, how they are metamorphing. You look at how air travel is metamorphing. You look at how 3PL is changing.
Yep.
So I don't think you need warning signs to where this is headed. Those already exist. The demand already exists. So I think it is, for the future, we will have to do this. Like I said multiple times, ESG will become a way of life. We will have to do it. Otherwise, our customers will mandate it on us. Because you see, one portion's already complete. The demand side is complete. As soon as the supply relatively matches that, it's game over for those which are not supplying that. So whoever wants to stay behind the curve has to willingly take that risk that and I'm talking from a business perspective, right? From an overall business perspective, they have to willingly take that risk, that I'm cognizant of this risk and this is what I'm taking. And well, if I stay behind the curve, so be it.
Good. Awesome. I think, Nili, do we have you in with us in the call? I saw a message from your side. I think some connectivity issues happening. So, okay. So we are coming. I think let's take the few comments that has come our way. And I would like to first, it is from Mr. Ahmed Khoker. Good evening, everyone. I'm from Saudi Airlines, Jeddah. Pleasure to join the session. Hopefully, it will add value and knowledgeable session for all the participants coming from different background and experience. Definitely, Ahmed, thank you for your comment. And it has definitely, I can confidently say that I will move away from this 60 seconds, 60 minutes with Fahad and Nele with a lot of new information and a lot of better insights now. So, and I hope everybody have done the same. We have one question from Yasir Mehdi. Can you please shed some light on ESG compliance in developing economies where regulations are not tight enough to ensure compliance and some organizations take advantage? I would like to take a little dig at that. Yasir, see, at the end of the day, it's all about, as Nile mentioned, the company vision and objectives and goals. If the organization is true to it, that they want to create a sustainable future, they want to create sustainable products, and they want to do ethical sourcing, then it becomes part of their everyday. And that is where procurement comes in, that they start working there with their suppliers and they try, they start doing it and then preaching it as well. And they develop their suppliers, they identify, they do gap analysis with them, and then they do regular meetings. It's not that you create one checklist, do this, and you leave it to them. You sit down with them, at least do a quarterly review with them, see their progress and everything. So you will start developing, and then you make them ensure that they develop it with their suppliers. So this is how that movement goes from you to the first tier to the second tier. So it's a long process. It's not something that will happen overnight, but it needs dedication, it needs conviction from the management, and it needs usually what I like to call that the initial quick win. So that how would I put it, that Jaspa is there, and so that it continues and it shows value to everyone across the whole value chain.
Let me
Fahad,
add
if you
just
would like
one
to,
little
yeah,
quip
please.
over here. Yeah, let me just add one little quip over here. And it's very rudimentary, but why do we wear a seatbelt?
Yeah,
It's very simple. Like, would we not wear a seatbelt if the law didn't mention it?
we do it to protect our own selves, our own safety for us and our
Exactly.
family. Exactly.
Exactly. So that's just it. It's
Yeah.
as simple as that. It is
Correct.
about what you want to do. And that, I think that one example explains the entire thing. Sometimes you do stuff not because it is mandated by the law, but it is good business and it is the way you should do it. Okay, but I also understand, Yasir, why you pose that question, because in a lot of parts of the world, people would sort of misuse uh, the absence of something in the law. And that is where the conviction, like Noman said, comes in, that we are on the right track. And your company would then distinguish itself from the others by saying that, guys, we are not in that business. That is not us. Okay, and that is the path that you choose.
Correct. So we have a comment as well from Ahmed Kokar, and he's saying, to my knowledge and understanding, I think it's a bit hard to comment, but I believe world is not ready to move to 100% sustainable environment in businesses. Ironically, no one interested to discuss and own the cost impact of implementing and operating the industry on sustainable environment. And then he goes on to give examples. On the other hand, organizations keep awarding them top performing supplier awards. I think you are sharing some personal experience in your comment, and I will go to Fahad's example, fine, earlier on when he was saying that 10 years back, health safety was not a priority. You would never see anybody wearing gloves, goggles, vests, harnesses, and everything. But now, still, it's not 100%. Still, you see the misses and everything. But we have moved a long way because people have understood, people have embraced it, people understand the importance, and companies are pushing for it. And it is part that are you compliant to safety? Are you everything? So, point is that with education and with time, things evolve. So, yes, right now, I agree with your comment. Not right now, 100%. Even health and safety is not 100% so far. There are still lapses, there are still accidents happening and everything happening around. But we are on the right path, we are on the right journey, and we are the commitment from us as leaders needs to be there to help organization understand the value add of sustainability. Sustainability is not a cost, it's a value add, it's an investment for our future, for us in total. Fine. So this is it. The next one is from Yasir, just a comment to add to this discussion. ESG compliance would need integrated approach, and not only within broader industry, but also including regulators, international. Agree with you that everybody has to play, and this is why the international bodies which give, who do audits on ESG and carbon footprints and everything, this is why they are there. I'll give you an example, Yasir. In Saudi Arabia, for example, there is a requirement now that ESG audits are not mandated, but they are preferred, especially for the listed companies in Saudi Arabia, that they have to submit their ESG audit reports on an annual basis, and they need to show progress. It's a preferred thing. It's not still not mandated, but yes, the regulations are coming in for Saudi Arabia, and so is it. But in Europe, in the US, these are mandated audits that needs to be done. They cannot work with organizations which are not sustainable, or at least they are not harming the organization, the environment. Mariam Malik, sorry, I'm taking the questions or commenting on it, Fahad. I'm taking my limelight as well. Fine, the spotlight. Thank you for your valuable information. Hopefully, we will working in our relevant industries. Thank you, Mariam. Azmat, Fahad, you will take this question. How do we deal with the supply resistance regarding ESG compliance and ethical sources?
Well, it's fairly simple. You see, like this is change management 101. Okay. So what you do is you work with, first of all, you start working with your strategic suppliers, like Nilay said. So have a supplier segmentation. You segment your suppliers, saying this is my strategic supplier, this is my tactical supplier, this is my operational supplier, and then you start working with your strategic ones who go along with you on your journey. And the thing is, they have a huge business with you, and they're progressive, so it'll be little to no resistance getting them on board. Then the rest will follow. Okay. By the end of it, it's just very simple. Somebody who is not willing to work that way, we just say that we will not work with them. Then that's a policy.
We part ways. Yeah, we part ways.
Yeah. So we have Nilay back. Sorry, Nilay, we missed you.
Yes, I also missed you guys. Like, but I'm back.
You're back.
Glad to have you back, Nilay.
Yeah.
It's a good thing that we are ending the session with you on the main screen. So again, it was a wonderful session. I learned a lot, and I hope all our audience learned as well from the two greats, Fahad and Nilay. And they brought their unique perspective, their unique experience, and their unique insights to this topic. And I couldn't have asked a better panel guest for this session. So a big thank you to both of you, Nilay and Fahad. A big thank you from my side, and a big thank you to everyone who joined in. I will be sharing the recording of this with everybody, and it will be up on the Supply Chain Talks YouTube channel very soon as well for all the public as well.
Thank you so much, Noman, for this. And thank you so much, Nile, for being a fellow panelist. It was wonderful talking to you and to everyone who listened to us,
Thank you.
who was on the on the webinar. And once again, thank you to Supply Chain Talks for arranging this.
Thank
My
you, guys.
pleasure.
And yeah, thank you, Norman. Thank you, Fahad. It's not easy for our friends to be here listening to us patiently. So, yeah, very much thank you to all of you who were able to join today. We can keep connected through Norman individually, and we would really love to, get your feedback and take the sustainability procurement forward. So, it's not just a seminar for us, but it's something that we do every day in our organizations.
Yeah.
So, if we believe in that, then we will. And a little note from my side is to take this concept forward is also, start measuring our own carbon emissions as a person. So, for some of you who would be interested, there are several websites that can actually map what is our own carbon footprint on the world, on the planet Earth, and start from there. There are guidelines
Yeah,
in place where we are and where we should be. And once we know where we are as individuals, we can also take very clear cut, sustainable ideas and implement them to reduce our own and our families' footprint for the planet Earth. Thank you.
perfect. A big thank you again at the end. Thank you, everyone, and have a great evening. Bye bye.
Thank you. Thank you,
Thank you
Norman.
so
Bye
much.
bye.
Bye.
Bye, Fahad. Bye.
Bye.